Hello and welcome to the Last Looks podcast, a show where we catch up with talented hairstylists and makeup artists in the film and television industry. We'll pick their super creative brains and find out all the good stuff. Join me, your host, Jamie Lee, in finding out what's what in the hair and makeup departments around the world.
Now it's time for Kit Corner, where we shine a spotlight on artists who've created products with the film and television industry in mind. Products designed by artists for artists.
Hi, James.
Hey, Jamie, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. Now, you are a professional makeup artist represented by the Wall Group. You are a global makeup ambassador for Rimmel, and you are the founder of the award-winning brand My Kitco. So what is My Kitco and what inspired you to start your own makeup accessory company?
Oof, it's quite a lot of things. I feel busy just with you reading those out. So My Kitco really, it is my baby actually. And, I've been in the industry for a good 20 years, and I actually came up with the idea of My Kitco when I was living in Hong Kong. And I was coming to the end of a really amazing career with MAC. I'd been with the brand for 15 years. And had a fantastic time with them. But I was just noticing when I was talking to makeup artist friends of mine that we perhaps didn't have those brush styles that we were so familiar with back in the day. Some things were missing, or I could kind of notice that perhaps the quality just wasn't there anymore in certain brands. First of all, it was meant to be a brush brand, My Kitco really, which soon escalated into being a bag and brush brand, just because there was a need in the market. Again, speaking with friends and trying to get these bags from all over the world, whether it was Ricky's in New York or going over to Namie's in LA, we would just be on like a constant treasure hunt for the perfect kit bag. And everyone's so passionate about their kits that I thought it was a bit of a no-brainer. So My Kitco was born out of a bit of a need for good quality, really affordable, but really functional products. That made your kit look a certain way. They were really durable, and you could be proud when you opened your kit,
That's awesome. Your brand feels unique and original. Can you tell me a little more about your design process and any product that you're particularly proud of?
Yeah, for sure. It does feel unique, I guess, because everything I design really comes from the heart, and I always try to identify a need. Like if I'm on set and I'm like, oh, if only this bag was this shape, or, if only I had a bag that folded down into this, or, I always like to have things that feel multi-use and multi-purpose. And a lot of the My Kitco classics, they're one thing, but they're also another thing. There'll be a pocket inside a pocket or a zip that kind of opens it up into a whole other thing. But when it comes to things like the Brush Buddy, for example, that was me literally sat at my kitchen table one night going, okay, I'm so tired of carrying around like a brush roll or a brush belt. I want something that stands upright, that gives you the ability to separate your clean and dirty brushes or arrange your brushes by style, for example. And so I kind of started piecing together this kind of Frankenstein bag of all of these different components and came up with the original Brush Buddy design, which I guess it's got to be one of my most proudest moments. And it was something that really felt new and different and innovative. And it kind of put My Kitco on the map, I think, in many ways.
That's very cool. So at what point did you realize My Kitco was going to be such a success?
Well, I'd always hoped it would be, obviously, because, I left my amazing corporate job and relocated back to the UK and quit everything and thought, oh my God, now, so you have a brand that you're just starting. Like it just had to be successful. And I guess the first inkling we had that we were onto something really good was when, we were being used and requested by industry greats like, Lucia Peroni, Val Garland, just some really great names that took an instant shine to it. I guess for the quality of My Kitco and just kind of what we stood for. And I think within the first 6 months, we'd already been approached directly by Selfridges, which is obviously such a huge store here in the UK. And they asked us to be part of their beauty hall. So there was a couple of moments, but I think Selfridges are being a big first distributor and just seeing all of that love from the community. And, it's not just the industry greats, it's just hearing from artists starting out and just saying your kit bags have changed the way that I, store my makeup. That was just a lovely moment as well. So there's been lots of moments.
Yeah, how exciting. How do you feel when you see your peers using your tools?
It's amazing. What actually a really funny moment, I was on the tube in London, and obviously, girls like to do their makeup when they're on their way to work. And there was a girl doing a bronzer with a My Kitco brush. And I was like, that's amazing. That's like success, when you see like you're in there. But then I also, whenever I see we get tagged in so much amazing content and just the genuine love for the brand and anything new that we bring out, we just get such a great positive response. And so for that, I'm like eternally grateful. We wouldn't be anything without our My Kitco fans.
I love it. Anything new on the horizon for My Kitco?
I've actually used my downtime recently just to get back to designing bags and coming up with brand new ideas. So we're launching something that I feel, I'm confident, will be a bit of an industry game changer as well. I've got the same feels as I did when I designed the Brush Buddy, and it felt like it was really new but really needed. So we have something coming up at the end of August, beginning of September, which will cross over perfectly into film and TV, as well as backstage at the shows, or just for a good working makeup artist. The only thing I can give you a hint is it's not really a bag, it's a hybrid thing, but that is the biggest launch, as well as some amazing new brushes, which I've just had the samples for today. They've just arrived in my office. So I'm buzzing about those, but also for the next buddy. That's always a nice moment for us.
Yeah, looking forward to that. Where can people purchase My Kitco?
So My Kitco, we have distribution worldwide, actually. We're with Beautylish in the US, Beauty Bay here in the UK. You can purchase in-store at Selfridges. And we also have some amazing partnerships in New Zealand, Australia, Iceland, Spain. And obviously, if you want to get your full My Kitco experience, make sure you check out the website, which is www.mykitco.uk. And actually, we have an amazing offer for all of you lovely listeners. If you use the code THELASTLOOKS, so all one word, The Last Looks, at checkout, you're going to get 25% off either our classic Brush Buddy or the Big Brush Buddy as a thank you for all of your support. Yeah, so make sure you check us out, guys.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, James.
My pleasure. Lovely to speak to you, Jamie. Thanks for having me.
Today, I'm speaking with Daniella Milton and Mandi Martin from the Milton Agency. We chat about the birth of the agency, what the role of an agent is, what representation means to them, and how important communication and trust are within the agent-artist relationship.
Pictures up.
Last looks. Rolling.
And action.
Welcome to the Last Looks podcast, ladies.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. Hi, thank you.
You're very welcome. Hey, now, Daniella, you are the founder of the Milton Agency and are based here in LA. And Mandi, you're based in England and run the London office. The Milton Agency represents makeup artists, hairstylists, Steadicam operators, costume designers. Is there anyone I'm forgetting?
We have
ADs.
one director.
And a director. Brilliant. For film, television, and publicity worldwide. I want to start with you, Daniella. I want to hear the story of how the Milton Agency was born.
Okay, well, this becomes murkier as I get older, to be honest.
It always does.
Well, basically, I arrived in Los Angeles in 1992, having never worked in film. Everything I'd done up until that point was in fashion.
Okay.
So I arrived here with some notion of getting a fashion job and was just horrified that there's nothing here really at that time,
Mm-hmm.
And had it not been that the fashion industry, would never have forgiven me if I'd just gone back to England, I would never have got a job again because it was like I'd said my goodbyes to everybody. It was like, oh, she's back,
Yeah.
So I just stayed and I ended up getting a job as an assistant to the actress Angelica Houston.
Oh, okay.
And that proved to actually be the beginning of it all because for me, I stayed with Angelica, for about 7 years. And in that time, obviously, I was working on set and my closest friends were hair and makeup people because I'm in the trailer with them the whole time and the costumer and stuff like that, Angelica's costumer.
Mm.
So, basically I didn't realize it was sort of my apprenticeship because I learned what you guys done at that time. Obviously, there was no digital, but I learned things. I learned everything. And I actually started sort of negotiating between Angelica's makeup and hair people and Angelica's agent. They'd tell me, well, this is what I want. She would be the one at that time telling the producers what they wanted. So I sort of become this weird sort of middleman for them in a way, just by default,
Mm-hmm.
So, I did that for a number of years. And one day I was in the trailer I think we were in New Mexico. I think it was New Mexico. And I was with Nava Sedan. She was Angelica's costumer, fabulous girl. And she started saying, oh God, I got to do my deal. And I really, really hate the idea of doing it. They're never going to give me what I want. And I'm like, oh, what do you want? Because I'm really good at getting stuff for other people. It was really that simple. So she told me what she wanted. And I went in, I said, I was a manager. I had no idea what I was talking about. no idea about anything. But I came out and I said, oh, yeah, I got that, and I got that, and I got that. And she was thrilled. And actually, I think she would have got it too, but it was more the anticipation of what they were going to say than what they actually said. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't. Anyway, then we started, that led to the conversation of, how comes, because coming from the fashion industry, and Mandi will tell you this, makeup and hair people, they had agents. Everyone had an agent. I just didn't understand. So I was saying to Nava, how comes nobody has an agent, a hair and makeup agent? And she was like, I don't know, but maybe it's something you should do. And I was like, no, I just wondered, wonder why they don't have representation. It seems to make no sense coming from the fashion industry. I just didn't understand. Everything was word of mouth at that time. Producers would call 15 people,
Yeah.
So basically, a little later, I found out I was pregnant with my first child, Harrison. And I was on maternity leave, and I think I had about 4 weeks maternity leave.
Mm-hmm.
And Nava started telling everybody, oh, Daniella's going to be an agent. I never said that. That was not my plan at all. That said, it did occur. I was like, what am I going to do? Because to be a really good assistant for me, like I'm sure people can do it, and they do it, and they do it fabulously. But for me, I just knew I wouldn't be, as good an assistant having a baby. But anyway, I worked it out, and I sort of hung in. So I told everyone who was phoning me, Barbara Lorenz phoned me, Susan Germain, all these people, you're going to be an agent and we're interested. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not at all. No. I didn't even know what it really meant. So basically I went back and I hung in there for a couple of years, and then found out I was pregnant again. And I thought, this is it. I can't. It was really hard for me because you miss so much of your babies, So I sort of started to think about the idea of being an agent, and I basically just cut into the chase. I got my agent's license, and I worked a bit from Angelica's office because she had asked me to. She said, can you just stay on and do both? But it became apparent really fast that was not going to work. I mean, the agency started growing before I did, in a sense that there were so many people saying, and it was interesting because I couldn't pull in work then. I didn't know what I was doing. I stumbled into the union heavily pregnant, or not heavily pregnant, but I was about 5 months pregnant. And John Inzarella was the name of the man that was there at the time. He was a fabulous man. I liked him a lot. He said it. He was a straight talker. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And I think he just must have felt sorry for me, honestly. I just waddled in there saying, I want to be an agent and I want to know how I can work with you. And it kind of was born like that in a way. And before I knew it, I was sitting on a sort of orange box on Hollywood Boulevard in an office thinking, what the hell have I done? No work. My husband at the time was an actor, which meant that he rarely had work. And I was pregnant. I was like, oh my God. So really that was it, Jamie Lee. It just it was very organic and very odd, and sort of just came to me. And as I say, it sort of grew faster than I could learn in a way. And my artists at the time, Barbara Lorenz and Christina Smith and Kathy Blondell and Catherine Gordon, Tina Earnshaw, all the American girls, they really helped me with the union rules, as did the union, because I definitely didn't want to stand on their toes. I wanted to join them. I wanted to, and there was no template for it. There was no one doing it. There was a couple of agents, managers who had maybe one makeup artist or one hairdresser, but there wasn't anybody exclusively doing hair and makeup as an agent. So I couldn't even base on it. In actual fact, I got highly criticised from a lot of the print agencies because they were upset that I was only charging 10%,
right?
Because they charge between 15 and 20. And I said, the day you get film people, then talk to me, because you can't charge on a regular film shoot 20% of people's income. But anyway, that's it in a nutshell. That's how it started.
So there was obviously a need for it. I mean, everybody's coming to you, so that's pretty amazing. So you're just going along, just working it out, kind of trial and error, just fumbling through it,
scrambling my way around and just listening to what people needed. And I think the need for it was, for me anyway, I don't know how Mandi feels about this, but the need, and the need still, I think, is that it just separates you guys from the deal. And so it just is a bridge between you and the producer, and hopefully when the deal's done, our objective is that it's a win-win. the producers are happy, you're happy, you know?
Yeah.
And that sort of was the need for it. People were sick. Just going back to that day in the trailer with Nava saying, oh, I don't want to do this deal. I'm dreading it. They always do this, they do that, they do the other. And, you know, it's kind of also when you do it for yourself, it's harder, isn't it? Anything is. And you're doing it for somebody else, it's much easier.
Yeah, it's true. And I think being creatives as well, it's kind of not necessarily our ballpark. Like we're just like, I don't want to deal with this. This is not why I'm in this industry. I don't want to have these conversations.
Exactly.
I just want to get on with my job. And you want to have a different relationship with those producers and stuff as well, not that kind of back and forth bargaining, I guess. You're going to do that later with other things that you need.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just, you know, as I say, there was back in those days, in the early days, I couldn't get people a job. Nobody even knew who I was. It took 5 years to really become a pinprick on the map of the film industry here. It was like, it wasn't happening. So yeah, it just took another burden off you guys, you know, to have to think about fighting for your deal.
Yeah. So within that happening, I mean, you've got artists like hair and makeup artists interested in having you do that job for them, but how long does it take before producers kind of start coming to you to find people? Because I imagine at first maybe they were getting their own jobs, but then you were their contact for getting their deal done, and at some point that must have turned around a little bit more for when producers come to you and go, we are needing a hair and makeup artist. Like how long did that all take?
5 years.
5 years.
I remembered it was almost, I mean, yeah, because basically at first when my artist was saying, you know, oh, we have an agent, producers were not welcoming of that initially.
Right.
It wasn't until they realised, oh, hold on, I've got a list here of 20 people. Why don't I call the Milton Agency and see if they represent any of them? Because it's all they were doing was collecting resumes and asking availability. So basically, it was killing two birds with one stone, or in their case, sometimes, depending on how many clients we had at the time, 15 birds with one stone or whatever, because, you know, it was just, it took away, I think it made it easier for them too. And I think they realized that at first it wasn't, you know, they were upset because I think they thought that we were going to try to get more money out of people and gouge them. And really, it wasn't about that. And it really still honestly isn't, you know. But yeah, so I'd say 5 years before my phone started ringing for availability.
That's awesome. And so when does Mandi come into the picture?
I kind of baited Mandi.
It's true. It's still happening.
I'll let Mandi tell the story and take over from here. But yeah, I try to avoid people asking this question in fear that she's never going to forgive me. But anyway, Mandi, you can speak of this.
So this is my version of things. We have known each other for a really long time through fashion PR when I used to be in fashion, and Daniella was working for Lynn Frank's PR, who was like the biggest fashion PR around at the time in London. And we always had a really fond relationship. And I think it was one Christmas, Daniella would come home and I'd gone to meet her with her husband, and we were talking about the office. And Daniella, I think it was about an overflow, really. There was an overflow of artists who were coming to London. Film wasn't as busy as it is now, but there was a presence of the Milton Agency in London, but nobody really sort of in charge of it. And I can't really remember because I'm sure I was hypnotised or something over that lunch. But there was some kind of conversation about needing somebody to come into London and do something. And literally, this is how I remember it. And I'd worked in fashion for years. I'd taken a break from fashion and gone to study medicine and homeopathy. And I had been making jewellery, handmade jewellery, which was really great and creative, but I needed a regular job, something part-time to work alongside that. And Dan had said, you know, why don't you go into the office and meet our bookkeeper there and, you know, maybe come in for a day a week and help out with whatever. I can't even remember what the reason was. And I'd said, yes, I'd go in and do that. And I went in and I met who was then our bookkeeper, Leslie, in this tiny, if I tell you, it was literally, we called it the crow's nest. It was a teeny little space. And it was a really funny arrangement because it was part of somebody else's photographic studio and they were really grumpy. So you had to be really quiet in this space. And meanwhile, I agreed to go in there to find somebody good to run the office. I think I'd been there for 2 weeks, and Leslie, who was my meant to be my supporting act, said, "You seem really capable," and left. And I then started to look for someone to do the job. And I think that was like 2006. 2007, I was still there, and here we are. I think I became a partner in 2012, and we had like an overflow, probably about 10 clients that we looked after. And if the phone rang in those days, I would jump out of my skin because it was so quiet, really. There wasn't that much going on. And then, now we moved into a big office. There are 4 of us here in London. We have nearly 42 artists, I think, that we look after here now.
Wow.
And I'm still looking for somebody to run the business.
I was going to say that. Are you still looking for somebody to take over?
Yeah, I don't know. I literally, I was drugged, I think. It was something happened, but here we go.
It was all part of my evil, cunning plan.
Well, I don't think you sound too put out, Mandi. I think you're having some fun, so that's good.
Yeah, actually, it's funny because it's I go through moments when I think, how did that happen? But mostly it's good.
And I usually divert the conversation at that point.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that over there.
Exactly.
Interesting. Yeah.
Some kind of weird magic going on there. Okay, well.
Yeah.
So now, Mandi, you guys have launched Milton Red.
Yes.
Right? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. Okay. So, we ultimately, as Dan has said, we're mostly film and TV. And what we have found is in the past, where we do personal jobs with talent, occasionally they will do a press tour or they will do some red carpet premiere, and they will ask the artists that work with them to go and do that work. However, often we were finding that we were getting requests and artists were getting familiar with the publicists and familiar with the work, but they would then go off and do a film for long stints of 3 to 6 months. So the publicist would call and say, we've got a red carpet event, who have you got? And I would be scratching my head because people were on film. So we kind of had a conversation about it, and it felt more, at the time, it was sort of more of a thing that we would be recruiting specifically for people who do red carpet publicity, marketing, personal appearances, etc., and really aren't going to disappear off on a film in the middle of it. And so that was the idea of that.
Yeah.
We launched it sort of a year and a half ago, and it's been really great. We've got some really great artists on there, and what's fantastic for us with that is that we know that we can sort of offer people who will be available and in the country a lot of the time, rather than just be able to go and do sort of a one-off job and then go off and work on film. And we also, of course, a lot of our artists do have really strong personal relationships with talent. And although they're on the main roster on the Milton Agency, they are available on Red by special request. So, we still have the original artists who like to do red carpet and press available when they are not working on a film. And then we have a new roster of specifically chosen makeup and hair people who are here in mostly London based, one in Paris, one in South Africa actually. Yeah, that's really the story of Red.
Yeah, that's awesome. It makes total sense. I mean, it all goes kind of hand in hand, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
So as agents and being an agency for hairstylists and makeup artists, what is your role as an agent?
I think Daniella nailed it probably before when she was saying that actually what people think being an agent is about getting work often. And I would say for me, certainly in the London office, it's a lot less about actually getting work for people, but more about being the buffer between an artist and the producer. Exactly as Daniella was saying before, really kind of protecting and negotiating on behalf of a client who doesn't really want to argue about a per diem with someone that they're going to have to work with. And, making sure that our clients are taken care of, really. Would you say that's right, Dan?
Yeah, definitely. Although I would say that most of my time is trying to secure work. I'm sure yours is too.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
literally going through every single listing every week,
Yeah.
no matter how small or how big, and knowing everything that's out there. And just, now, after all these years, I have so many relationships with producers, as does Mandi, that it's just easy to call up and say, hey, are you looking for someone? So it's a huge part. And I would say, that first sort of 5 years and maybe even going on to 8 years, I wasn't really pulling in work. But now, there were people who come to us who had their own following and their own niche, and they still get that repeat work. But the sort of artists who are newer, not newer to the business, but newer to us, we pull in a substantial amount of work.
Yeah.
But artists get it. It comes to them too. But I think that's the same for you, Mandi.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we go through every production.
Exactly. I mean, my objective is our objective is to get work. That's the bottom line, to get work. And then, whether that comes from us or from you guys, then that's when we start playing, trying to make it as easy and great a negotiation as possible for the artist.
That all makes complete sense. Yeah, I feel like some people on the outside, not really knowing what an agent does, thinks that it is purely just getting you work, and that they don't really think about all the other stuff that's involved.
Yeah, and I guess that's really kind of, what I was speaking to, is that some people, immediately come. If they come, I meet people all the time who say, always ask, why do you want an agent, or why do you want an agent now? And they often say, well, I need work, and my agent that I'm with now hasn't got me any.
Right.
And I will always kind of address that in a way to say, it's more than, like Daniella says, we metaphorically, march up and down the pavement looking for work for our artists. We study every, publication that comes out, every sniff of a new job. We're always aware of that. But I would say that is very much part of it, not all of it. So when people sort of think that you are just there to get work, I guess that's what I'm speaking to. I'm speaking to the other elements of that. Sometimes just artists, that I have here certainly want to just talk through projects. Is this the right thing for me right now? Is this, should I be doing another action movie, or do I need more women? All of those kind of nuanced questions that nobody else really can discuss with them in detail, I guess.
Yeah, just having somebody to bounce everything off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree, Mandi. When people come in and I ask them why they're looking for representation, if they say, well, my agent isn't getting me work, I'm like, I don't know an agent who doesn't want you to work. What's the point? There's no agent out there who's just going, well, it doesn't make any logical sense to me. So, yeah, I mean, I agree with Mandi, but I think what we both do is we bust our ass trying to get jobs, but you can't guarantee it, and that's the truth. And that's what we say to everyone, we can't guarantee it, but we will die trying,
absolutely. And we often say, we will do everything we can, and we really do, to get your resume in front of the right people, but we can't do any more than that.
Yeah. I mean, a large chunk of it really is up to the artist. I mean, making those relationships and meeting the people while they're working to then work with those same people again. So to be asked back by production or talent or whoever. So yeah, I mean, it's up to both parties, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely a collaboration and communication, and it's a multifaceted answer, really, because you find that you become so close to people. You know so much about people's lives, and it's also about creating that sort of safe haven for people to feel like they can talk to you, and you will help them. People are different, some people have. They want to go on location, don't want to go on location. Others do. Everyone's really different. So, yeah, I mean, it's the role as an agent is, as I say, it's, there's a lot of facets to that. Wouldn't you say, Mandy?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. So at what stage in someone's career would they start looking to be represented by an agent, do you think?
Well, I mean, personally, I would say it's once I think what Mandy said, once they start feeling that they really don't want to deal with their deals, so things start coming in and they start going, oh God, I don't know what project to decide. I've got two things coming in. What one do I decide? Or, I think for me that would probably be the best time for somebody to come in when they've sort of put themselves on the map a little bit, whether it's as an assistant, which normally is how you guys come up, assisting people. And then once they start getting offered their own jobs from there, I think is when, and they feel like they might need a little bit of help to, manage their stuff, then I think that's when an agent would come into play. What do you think, Mandy?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think one of the things that I've noticed a lot, similarly in London, since I've been doing this job, we faced a lot of resistance, sort of, I suppose, behind the LA office in terms of, producers not really wanting to deal with agents, makeup and hair artists in the UK not really having agents. So there was a bit of resistance at the beginning for me. And then over the years, what I've noticed is, as we've kind of moved towards having personals here as well, that's become a big thing for us in the London agency. Artists who have worked with particular actors on projects and then, as part of main team, and then they get asked to do a major motion picture as a personal. And often that's when I will get a call from people who are moving up and will say, hey, I just did so-and-so on this big project, and they've asked me to come along as a personal with them on their next movie, and I really don't know what to say or how to manage this. I think it's time for me to get an agent. So for me, that's something I've really noticed. But, I think also that thing about getting to a stage where you're wanting a bad cop so that you can go on and just be the good cop on set, that you can actually say yes to everything and smile and get on with your job and really do your job while it's, Daniella and I who are having the conversations about money and things and overtime or things that might be a little bit awkward.
Yeah, absolutely. So what kind of advice would you give artists that are thinking about going down the agent path?
Now, I was just going to say a light-hearted one, really, which is don't send me an email that starts off with, hey.
Oh my God, I'm so guilty of that. That's me. I'm but not to somebody that I have not met before in a professional.
That's my traditional.
Yeah. I'll just
my traditional professional manners. If you say "hey," that's the end of the relationship. Sorry, Dan. I
can't help you. Can't help you.
No, it's so true. I think, it's probably a little bit here. There are so many agencies now, and I'm really proud of that, I have to say. People say, does it worry you? And I'm like, not at all. Bring it on. I think it's fantastic. I mean, I'm really, 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 really proud of that there are people that, majority doing hair and makeup. It's fabulous.
Yeah.
So for me, I would say here in the US, I would say go, call up everybody, and go and see those who will see you. Talk to them on the phone. It's really about the fit. I really feel that strongly.
Absolutely.
There's nothing worse than feeling disconnected to an artist. I hate it, and it happens and you struggle. It's like a marriage of a sort, it's like not all of them work. It's that simple.
Yeah.
I just feel that if it were me and I was an artist, I would go and I'd see everybody because I'd want to know who I really think I can go to, I can trust. And they're not just about getting, there's not how we operate just about getting, the most money or going in aggressively. That's not how I get things. I know it's not how Mandy gets things. It's about being reasonable. As I say, that's our agents, but, I would say go and meet everybody and see who you fit with, who you can trust. It's like hiring an accountant in a way. Can you trust them? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you trust them? Can you walk out going, ugh, they seemed a bit slippery and didn't have any heart and I don't really or you know what, I really feel like I'd like this person to represent me. And it really is about that word represent, because we're the people talking to producers representing you. If we go in screaming and shouting about something, that's no good. That's not how I get things. I know some agents do, and more power to them, and that's their way, and it works for them. I'm not, putting that down. It just doesn't work for me.
Yeah. And within that may work for the type of personalities of the clients that they have.
Exactly, because people have said to me, you have to be really aggressive. So I don't like when people say that. First of all, they're telling me how to conduct my job.
Yeah.
And secondly, it's not my style, because a lot of these producers I know, we've built up a reputation because they can trust us. There's nothing worse than that feeling of having somebody in a corner. I don't like it. I'll never like it. But that's just me. I'll let Mandi talk of it. But for me, it would be, it's different for Mandi, because I don't even know Mandi. There's one other person I know of in the UK. Is really only...
Well, no, there's a few more now. Over the last sort of 4 or 5 years, there's similar to what you were saying, is that actually when I first sort of came in to do this, there was just us, and apart from like some of the majors who look after directors, producers, etc. But now there are a few more agencies that have come up, and because there is so much more production here too. So I would always say the same thing. I always say, go and meet anybody you're interested in, get a feel for, because we're not everybody's cup of tea. We work, both of us, I think, from our heart. We are, what you see is pretty much what you get. We may not be the most sophisticated technological agency in town. We don't have an electronic booking system yet. We use whiteboards and notes, but we are all heart. And that doesn't always suit people. I say, and I feel like it's a cliche, but it's like being part of a family. It requires two-way communication and trust.
Yeah.
And without that, if an artist is thinking that we're not on their side ever, it's the end of the marriage, really.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I feel very, very passionately about, is really make sure that we are the right fit for you, because we may not be. And then Daniella has said exactly the thing that I often say myself, which is that, representation. It is also a two-way thing. We actually literally represent you. So if we are not the person that you would want sitting at the table with you, talking for you and with you, and vice versa, the artists also represent us when they're on set, when they're on social media. So it's a collaborative agreement, and also a two-way relationship that is based on communication and trust for me.
Yeah, 100% agree. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, makes total sense. And I do remember vividly, Daniella, that when I first spoke to you, you said to me, shop around, and I think it was your website that kind of terrified me, I'll be honest, because it was so fancy and flash, and I was like, oh my goodness. And then I was coming to meet you and I was just saying, I'm so nervous, just like this big agent. And then I walked in the door and I immediately just relaxed as soon as I met you, because I was like, oh no. What kind of craziness did I have in my mind? I was just like, no, she's just this wonderful, lovely lady. This is great. I don't know what I kind of worked up in my mind, but it was just, and I'll be honest, after I met with you, I didn't talk to anybody else.
Oh, well,
I was just like, no.
That, because I think you and I have a very good, it's one of the best working relationships, I think. It's total trust. From the minute that Rick Findlater called me and said, there's this girl, she's just arrived in America, you should get her before, she's going to be amazing. And I was like, okay, yeah. And then, you called, we set up the meeting, and honestly, I haven't looked back. In all ways, you as a human being, you're just a pleasure, Jamie Lee. And I feel like we trust each other totally, and I love that.
Yeah.
That's the gold standard.
And it wasn't until we were in the same room and having the conversation, I was just like, I'm so comfortable talking to you. This is easy. This is someone I would like to work with. So at that point, I didn't feel like I needed to talk to anybody else, but I loved the fact that you were open to like push me to no, go and see other agencies, talk to
Yeah,
other people.
it's so important, so important. But if you do walk out, which I'm so glad you did walk out, with, thinking that you didn't want to see anybody else, but I do like people to know there are other people. There might be somebody you sort of, vibe with more. So yeah, I mean, yeah, that's been amazing since the day you walked in the door. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, guys. My
All right.
goodness. Are you
All
kidding? Now, I would like to know, what are some of the deciding factors for you when you are looking to sign an artist or even just approach them?
I don't think Mandi has either. I've never approached anybody thus far.
No.
It just, you know why though? It's not me going, oh, I don't approach people. Or Mandi said, no, we won't approach people. We're too good for that. Not at all. What it is that I don't know what I would say, Jamie.
Mm-hmm.
What would I say? Like, because as Mandi and I have said, all you can do is your best, and there's no promises. So unless you're going to call up somebody and say, hey, guess what? I can keep you working for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
I can't do that. So for me, if somebody, I think it's a bit like, the work speaks for itself. If you do good work in any field, it's the best publicity, really, word of mouth, So for me, it was always word of mouth, just like the day Rick called me about you. It's like, I'm not going to call people, but I'm always there to talk to, and that's for me is important, that I don't do that. But your question I've sort of diverted, sorry.
No, well, it was two questions within one, because it is when you're looking to actually sign somebody or approach. So
Mandi and I spoke about it, going, oh my God, we've heard they're going to call. That would be wonderful. But I've never, it's really that golden moment of somebody calling is the key for me, because then they're serious about getting an agent and wanting to chat and stuff. What we're looking for, I think, is what we're talking about. When you do finally meet someone, is getting along with them, looking at their work, knowing their work, having studied their work, so you know what they're capable of, and gut instincts as well about people, I think. But Mandi should speak more on this.
Well, I think pretty much the same. We've never, I don't think ever in the history of the agency we've approached anyone to join at all. But like Dan says, it's not because we're like, oh, we wouldn't, it's beneath us. Just because it's like, if people want to find you, and, they'll ask around. I think, it's a big industry and a very small industry.
Yeah.
So people will say, what about so-and-so?
Yeah.
I'm thinking about getting an agent. People might say, recommend or suggest. And there are people that I hear about. I've been very lucky here, because up until recently, my assistant, Jane, she was with us for about 5 years here, and she's just left to have a baby. But she came from the industry. She, had been working as part of main team on quite a few big projects in the UK. And so she was a really good gauge for me. She was also a really close friend of mine. So people would sometimes approach and I would say, how are they to work with? Because their work may be beautiful, but if I'm having to work with somebody on a day-to-day basis and they're not very nice to people, or that, there's reputation, there's a lot that happens, as we all know, on set. And it's a small world. And that, for me, because we are a small kind of boutique family business, really, we don't want a fox in the coop, really. And so that feels always, to me, really important. Like, what do I know about these people? How do people react when their name is mentioned? They could be the most talented artists in the world, but if they're going to come with a difficult attitude and a bad reputation, I certainly wouldn't consider representing them. For the same reason, as I said earlier, that the representation is a two-way street, and they will also be representing us as an agency. And that's just not who Daniella and I are. Speaking for you, Dan, sorry, but we're not.
No, you absolutely could speak for me for every part of my life, Mandi. And, it would probably be very accurate. So, yeah, totally agree. Totally agree.
That's awesome. Now, what are some of the more challenging parts of your job, do you think?
Oh, God.
How long
How
have we
long
got?
do you have on here? Lots of things, really. But I think the most challenging is to make it a win-win situation.
Yeah.
You know, I want to walk away from that deal going that my artist, our artist, can walk in there to that production and producers are not like, oh God, here they are, this pain in the ass because it's been a bad negotiation. You know what I mean? I go to all lengths to make it the most pleasant, and because I'm not the one, Mandy's not the one who walks in there and does that job. You are. So, that's a challenge sometimes. Sometimes it's not. And, again, in terms of artists, again, that famous word we keep talking about, trust. Because sometimes you do get the sense that your artist doesn't trust what you're doing or how you're doing it. And that is so painful for me. And I'm sure it is for Mandy.
Absolutely.
Keeps me up at night, honestly, because regardless to, we're all humans, and regardless to what you think of people, your artist, if you think they're being unreasonable in what they want, because sometimes that happens, I still want them to trust that I'm going to go out and do the best job that I can for them and know that in the heart. So for me, that's a challenge sometimes. What do you think, Mandy?
Yeah, I would say that absolutely that's one of the things that I think is that the trust element, that you are always going to do the very best job for someone, that you end up also sometimes being the sin eater. So, because of exactly what we said before, that we are there to kind of, be the bad cop in a way, but also that sometimes that takes its toll. I don't really want to fight. I'm not a fighter. I'm a lover, not a fighter.
Yeah.
It's not maybe the right job sometimes for a lover because, but I want to save the energy for a quote unquote fight or for a challenge or a negotiation with the right people. I don't want to feel that I'm having to kind of fight with the artists who are on my team. We're all on the same side. So I would say that can sometimes be challenging. And also for me, as I kind of said earlier, I think we are a family. And when the trust isn't there sometimes, Daniella and I both wear our heart on our sleeve a little bit. We should maybe be tougher, but I think it might take the heart out of the business sometimes.
Yeah.
So we take things personally.
Yeah.
We've talked about it a lot between us and we try not to. So I think, and controversially, we look after a lot of people, and the skill of a good agent is, I guess, also to make each artist feel that you're the only one. And on occasion, there is that feeling that people forget that we are doing so much work. We're working really hard, above and beyond often for each individual as well as the collective, and that we are also human. And I think that sometimes gets overlooked. We're not machines. We have feelings. And sometimes I think in the heat of the moment, because things can be stressful on set, and when we're talking about money, it's always sensitive. But, we are, if you cut us, do we not bleed?
So I guess within that, are there things that your clients do that make it more difficult or easier for you to do your job for them?
For me, certainly just that reiteration of trust us. We're not against you, we're always for you. Ultimately, if you're not working, we're not earning.
Yeah.
So we're all on the same trajectory. And I think sometimes when that's forgotten, or when I feel like with some clients that we're fighting each other, or not fighting isn't really the right word, but it's trust. It feels a bit boring that that word is coming up so much, but it really is, for me, a really important element, is that no, I'm always doing my best for you. And also that I can get things wrong. Yeah. I can make mistakes or forget something, forget to call you back, or get distracted, or, put $1 instead of £1 for a minute. Human error, I guess, is really, to have a leeway for that is really important too.
Yeah, just having some understanding of how much you're actually balancing on your side of things.
Yeah, I think for me as well, what's helpful to me is when an artist knows what they want. as much as they can. That doesn't always happen. Sometimes, Janie Lee, we've been in that situation. Oh God, do we take this job? Do we do that? And there's things like that you have to work out. But pretty much I would consider you a very decisive person.
That is hilarious that you're saying that, because I was about to say that's normally the longest conversations we're having is, I don't know what to do, Daniella.
You don't know what to do. None of us know what to do if you're offered two things at once. In your case, that happens a lot.
Yeah.
But you know what to do within it. Like, you're bound, you're easygoing to a point. You're not going to do something that makes you feel uncomfortable. Whereas, one of the things I don't like is like, listen, there's this job. I really want to do it, but I don't want to do it for the money, but don't lose the job. And you're sort of, oh God, you're treading on this thin ice, and you're like, I'm going to fall through any second because I really need to know what is your bottom line here. What will you say? The more that you can kind of know, but the worst time is if somebody is indecisive about most aspects.
Right.
I don't know if I want to go on location. I don't know if I want to do it for that money. I don't know if I want to do the job at all. But don't lose it. Don't lose it. You end up feeling like, you've been set up for failure in some way. So for me, to make our job easier, again, trust, as Mandi spoke of. And, because if you don't trust us, you really shouldn't be here. It's that simple. It's that simple. But yeah, when we bring a job to you or you bring a job to us, if there's something, of course, there's loads of, things we can't decide on straight away that have to be. Mm. But when there's so many, and it's like, really everything an artist says sometimes is like, I really don't want to do this job. But then in the next breath, it's like, but don't lose it. Don't lose it. And you're like, the classic is you've got producers. Mandi, I'm sure you know this one. This is another thing where people can make it easier. So we'll bring a job. Usually this is the way around. We'll bring a job. We'll say there's this job. Oh, I don't know if I want it. Okay, but they need an answer because they're moving on. Mm. And then that person disappears. They become a disappearing, invisible human being. You can't get. And then you'll get a text saying, "Just tell them that you can't get hold of me." Oh, I hate that because, you're at the gate here and then it's don't lose the job. And then you've got the producer saying, listen, we're moving on if we don't get an answer. We can't give an answer because nobody's going to you. So I don't know if that's making any sense, but.
No, it is. Yeah. It's trying to dangle somebody along, lead them along with a little string, the producer, while you're waiting for, come on, I need an answer.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I find that certainly, and similarly, one of the things that, I guess drives me crazy is this idea of the question about, I don't want to do it for that. So what should I say? No, don't say anything. And that idea of, we've got something is going on, and really there's a lot of kind of resistance to what's on offer. But the option that we have is to say no or to take the offer when we've reached that point of negotiation where this is what's on the table, but nobody will give you the go-ahead to either walk away, because nobody really wants to walk away, but they sometimes just want to stay in a position of feeling annoyed about what they didn't get. So that's kind of one of those things that I struggle with. And on the contrary to that, I have to say that I'm always so touched when people, just out of the blue, send a card to say, I appreciate what you did there, and, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Or, really that just a moment, because of course we are a service and we get paid to do the job, and we go over and above what most agents actually, I think, would do. I have a client in mind that I've worked with from the beginning, and sort of going through the process of working in the UK, doing what he wanted to do, and ending up sort of being a guest of his when he collected an Oscar, for me was one of the most, honestly, most moving and wonderful moments to be on that journey with a client.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Wow, it's wonderful.
That's a highlight for sure, right?
Yes.
So in turn, what do you enjoy most about what you guys do?
Well, for me, I would say, I mean, obviously, when something comes together and we get that win-win situation, that's really great. And you guys are happy, producers are happy, everyone's happy. Of course, doesn't always work out like that, but that's a good moment. But I think for me, what I really enjoy is when a producer will call me and say, and this happened a few years ago with the film Billy Lynn's Halftime Walk, which Ang Lee directed. And I had a call from a producer and he said, Daniella, I know you guys represent some amazing people, but this is really going to call for people. The way Ang is shooting this, it's at such a speed, it's really going to call for incredibly talented, to do it, and patience and all of that. Oh, that was so lovely to hear that, because guess why? It was somebody interested in the craft. The sad part is when you get the calls, who have you got and how much are they? And on the flip side, it's the same for me with an artist. When, I first hear, well, how much they pay? And I'm like, do you want to hear about the job and the creative aspect of it? Because sometimes if I was an artist, I know that would really come into play for me. I'd want to feel passionate about the project. And it's not always about the money. Yes, we need the money and we want it to be good. But sometimes it's about what you guys got into it in the beginning. You know what I mean? Why you got into it was you enjoyed the creative process. And
yeah, that resonates with me. I think there's a lot of times that it's the last question that I ask you, or don't even ask you, because I'm like, oh, I know I'm going to get paid, but whatever. Like, what's going on in this film?
Exactly. Yeah, you're a beautiful example of joy, to be honest, because that is lovely. Because if I say, hey, there's this project and it's this direction, my heart often beats much faster than the artist, because I'm so excited about it. And it's very disheartening for me when people aren't focused on the creative side of it, because that's, of course, what you all got involved for. So that is pleasing to me when people say, well, is there, are there any wigs? What period is it? Oh, it's period. That's fantastic. And again, not to put down money. We all need it. We all need it. We know that. And we will do the best within whatever deal to get you the most we can get. But to start off with initially, what makes me smile and feel good is when people, start out with being interested in the creative side of it.
Yeah, being excited by the project itself.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think my response is probably just the same, actually. One of the other things that gives me great sort of satisfaction is if there's something that somebody really wants to do and they do say, listen, I've heard of this thing happening. From a creative perspective, this is a director I've always wanted to work with. Is there any chance you can get my resume over, or, can my CV be delivered somewhere? And sometimes you do think, I'm not sure that necessarily this is the right fit, but I'm really going to make it, my job to get this person seen, and then they get seen, and then they get the job. And for me, that's something I absolutely love. I will normally phone Daniella with excitement about that.
Yeah, that's cool. So having not been in the industry as hairstylists or makeup artists yourself, I mean, I know, Daniella, you said that you were in the trailer a lot back in the day, and Mandi, you had Jane working with you who'd been in the industry. But how do you guys keep up with how it all works for your artists on set and help understand kind of what they're dealing with on a daily basis?
I think for me, obviously, I come from, I did understand the set at the time. That said, that's all changed. But I think because we have such close relationships with our artists, most of the time, hopefully that's the case. And so we're always checking in. How's it going? What's it? If there's a problem, if there's an issue, if there's not, if it's going well, the challenges, and we learn that way. We learn from people talking about their their mistakes, or I learned early on, a no makeup look is actually quite a lot of makeup.
Yeah.
And so I think it's, for me, just to, keeping abreast of what everybody's doing as much as you possibly can, and our artists also telling us what's going on, if it's going well, if it's not, if not only calling us if it's not going well, but calling us when it's going well too, and so that we know, and just telling sort of different technical things that they've had to do and their challenges. I think that's really how I learn. And also I learn a lot from the Bake Off every year, because when people stand up and they have to say creatively what they did. I think my first Bake Off was, it was 20 years ago. And I remember Lois Burwell, who was not a client at that time, technically talking about Saving Private Ryan, and I was amazed at the stuff that she was doing, and she was very eloquent about explaining it. And so it's just listening really and learning, seeing as we're not on set. But I think we've grasped it now, really.
Well, I suppose, I harking back to the witchcraft that happened when I started this job, sitting in the office, all by myself, with producers calling and saying, who have you got available for? And going, so-and-so, I'm the UPM, and literally sitting at the computer Googling UPM and getting some kind of like chemical response, thinking, it can't be that, it's got to be something else. And literally, that is absolutely true. I learnt on the job. I literally was like, having, really not known any of the terminology or anything. An LP I thought was a long playing record, giving my age away. I literally kind of learned as I went along. I would say that one of the things that I really love is that some of the clients really involve me from the beginning. I don't always have time to be that involved, but there are one or two who will even sort of discuss the script with me, discuss the period. And actually, when we do have the time for that information, it really, really helps me to do a deal, because I have much more of an understanding about, wigs, how many wigs and why they need two different wigs. I mean, I really love getting into those details of understanding why I'm negotiating what I'm negotiating. So not everybody does do that. A lot of people kind of really, just want the deal done. But a few of the clients will involve me in that process that brings the job to life. I very, very rarely go on set. I mean, I know some agents do that all the time, but it's not really something I'm interested in doing ever. Not because I don't want to see what they're doing, but I just think while we're on set, we're not doing the rest of our work. But on the occasions that I have been, to see it all come to life and to really kind of see the creative process, to go on the trailers and to, see how it all works, really kind of reminds me that we are doing a creative-based job rather than an office job. And that personally for me feels really important.
Yeah, and I'd agree with the on-set stuff. I mean, initially when I started out doing this, a lot of people wanted me to come on set, and I would occasionally go, but I never liked it, because I liked it, but I knew that really you're just in the way, you're just in the way. Because I remember, sometimes when Angelica's agent would come to set, and she had every right to be there, and Angelica would be the star of the movie, you're just in the way. And I remember people talking, it's like, so for me, it's like, if I'm on set, I want to have a job,
So I would like to know, and this is probably maybe a cheeky question, but how do you truly know that an artist you're representing is any good at their job? Do you get, how do you know?
Well, I mean, I think, if an artist has a certain body of work and they come to have a certain body of work, you do your homework before they come in and you look at the work. If you don't already know it, we probably, we look at everybody's works as much as we can. So But it's not only being good at their job technically, it's being good at their job as a human being.
Right.
In terms of personality. For me, I would say that nobody wants a pain in the arse on set. Nobody,
Yeah.
So, for me, if you're a good all-rounder, like going back to you, using you as a complete shiny example, generally,
Oh dear.
no, I mean, seriously, you know the work. If you don't know their work because they're a newer artist, it's usually based off a bigger artist further along in their career, giving you the recommendation, and saying this person, like Rick did with you, like this person is amazing. You have to, you really have to go. So for me, it would be good at their job would be twofold. The technical stuff is pretty easy to see and find out.
Yeah.
It's finding out whether they're good with the actors, good with the producers, are diplomatic, and generally, that for me would be, that's how I would answer that.
So do you tend to get feedback from production?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, and
That's good.
I mean, I call production most of the time. When it's a few weeks into shooting, I will call and say, hey, how's it going?
Just check in.
Yeah, and just check in. I mean, generally speaking, if you haven't heard anything, it's going well.
Yeah, that's across the board with the film industry, I think.
If you're getting the call from a producer, and then I'm like, oh God, what's this about? Because they generally tend to not call really once if everything's going fine, and if it's not, that's when you get the call.
Yeah.
So
I remember being told that no news is good news.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say, I don't know how you feel, Mandy, but
yeah, I would say exactly the same. I guess it's I'm not really that much more to add to that. I think it's certainly there's so much more than just the craft.
Okay.
Personality, how you are perceived by production, how you treat team members below and above, all of those things, as well as just, I think the easiest part is to really just like look at images and to see, to know the work, to familiarize yourself with the actual work itself. But I think that that's really just half of what we're thinking about when we're considering how people are to work with.
Yeah, and I think it's the same for the producers looking to hire as well. I mean, they want someone who's good at the art, but also, someone that they can communicate with and get on with, and that just gets on with the job and isn't going to cause them stress. So, yeah, it's across the board, really.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the time producers will say, it will be one of their questions, like, I want someone easygoing. I really don't want trailer drama.
Yeah.
And sometimes people ask me that question, what are they like? And I'm like, look, this is such I don't work in the trailer with any of you. And I think our relationship with you guys is very different from your trailer relationships. Some people don't get on with the other person, or, things happen. Things happen, regardless. I like to try to put people together. If a pilot comes in or a commercial or something very short, I really like people to try other people. I try to push for that because I think it's a good way of expanding your horizon in a sense of work. You meet new people, they get job offers and they're like, oh, we want Jamie Lee for that. I'd love to work with her again. I mean, that happened with you and Tina. Tina's calling me going, oh my God, we've got to work again together. And you were.
Yeah,
but,
love Tina.
I mean, so that's lovely. I love that when that happens, when people get along. And I think it's nice to try it out on the short things to see if you work creatively and personalities and all that. The short ones are always good sort of trial and error of those things.
Yeah,
I think.
Kind of test the waters. Yeah. And from your guys' perspective and where you're working from, how do you feel the industry has changed over the years?
Well, I think, certainly for us here, it's streaming and television. I remember, I often laugh about this, that we were offered Game of Thrones early days when I was just sort of learning really about the industry, and I said, we don't really do TV, and let it go. And that's one of those things that I look back and think, how the hell did that happen? Luckily it came back, and we ended up sort of working with it. But I think there was a time when television for us in London in the UK wasn't as creative as film, whereas having seen such a huge shift in that, television is amazing at the moment. The different sort of streaming opportunities and more creative projects that are coming through. I would say that maybe is making a change in terms of more content and therefore more opportunity for smaller and medium projects rather than just big studio projects, which, of course we love those, but it's also, I feel very passionately about independent film. And so seeing different opportunities for projects to come through. So that's one thing. And also I have a huge passion about diversity and really wanting to see there's still a long way to go in the industry, but people sort of paying attention to diversity of all kinds at the moment, or it's certainly on an agenda and it's certainly being discussed, and I can see things changing, and that is something that's really important to me in terms of change.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the same for you, Dan.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that goes without saying. I'd agree with everything you say. I mean, I think that is the biggest shifts that we've seen, apart from the obvious, from going from, as I said, from Polaroids. I mean, everything is so fast now, having phones, and everything just can be done at such an incredible speed.
I agree. I assume too that means artists that were maybe only doing film are now stepping into television a little bit more, because the quality of television is amazing. So
yeah,
like really, back in the day when we used to get asked about television here, I think TV's always been slightly better in the States in some ways, in terms of there's always been kind of a restricted, like the channels will always have their go-to people. So the television projects that were interesting never came to us as an agency. They were very much kind of in-house in some ways. And so seeing that shift and the quality of production for television has just been mind-blowing in the short time that I've been doing this, really.
That's awesome. Well, thank you very much, ladies, for your time. This has been a lot of fun.
Oh, thank you.
And very educational.
Thank you so much, Jamie Lee.
Thank you so much, Jamie Lee. It's been really great for us too.
For links to see more about our guests, go to our Instagram at The Last Looks Podcast or our website, thelastlookspodcast.com. If you want to keep up with new episodes being released, be sure to subscribe through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, Google Play, YouTube, or any podcast streaming platform. And remember, if you're enjoying the show, share it. The Last Looks Podcast would like to thank Brett Stanley and Sabrina Castro. The song Fun Time by DJ Quads. Thanks for listening. Until next time.
That's a wrap, people.